Hello, and welcome back to Chats with Chelsea. Thank you so much for joining today. As I shared, season four is the best of all the seasons because we keep getting better. And one of the reasons is because of today's guest. I tried to memorize her bio, it just was not possible for this. But I want to tell you a little bit about her, and you will be able to find all the information below in the caption on the YouTube video. Tonight we have a CNN Hero Award nominee for 2013, 14, and 17. She's the founder of the Global Institute for Diversity and Change. She has an honorary doctorate from Stanford University. She's an educator, human rights activist, and ambassador, and some more that we'll be talking about. Chats with Chelsea community, help me in welcoming Dr. Yewande Austin to the show.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you so much for having me.
I am, just completely honored at the opportunity to dig a little bit into your background,
Mm,
and for you to be able to share some of your insights with the community. Purpose is huge for me. Part of
mm,
my mission and my tagline with Life of Chelsea is empowering women to live purposeful lives. When we find our purpose and we're able to live it out, it has this fulfillment that can be compared to no other. And so when I think about you, Dr. Austin, you wear so many different hats. I mean, I just named a few, but you're also a lecturer, a singer, a TEDx speaker. You've
mm.
been crowned chief in Nigeria. But let's go.
I'm sorry, I had to get that in
Oh, wow.
there.
But let's go back to your early years as a teenager. I mean, what did you think your career path was going to be?
That's such a good question, Chelsea. And I'll start off by telling you we were just having a little conversation on the side about accolades and how much you didn't know about me. And trust me, I don't hold it against you. Most of the time, I kind of feel like,
Thank you.
why would anybody want me? And then I look at some of the work and I do that I've done and I've said, yeah, that's pretty impressive. But it's not impressive because I'm special or
Mm.
impressive because I'm any better than anybody else. It's impressive because I decided to do what scared me the most. I walked in my purpose. And I think it is one of the scariest choices that
Mm.
we can make. Yes, I've been recognized as a Barack Obama Lifetime Achievement Award winner, and more recently, CNBC recognized me as one of 35 women that are transforming Africa. But I didn't do this work for the accolades. They came as a result of my purpose, of the call that I decided to answer at a very young age. I'll actually go back before I was a teenager, because
Okay.
would you believe I first answered the call when I was just about 7 years old?
Wow.
I think that we all know in the earliest stages of our lives exactly who we want to be and the space we want to occupy. And then as we take that journey called life and we start listening to our parents who love us, but they say, dear, that's nice, but don't you want to be that? Or your friends who aspire to get the degrees, which are wonderful and are important, but you think you should do what they're doing, not understanding you have your own unique and divine purpose that has been assigned just to you. So I can remember as early as 7 and 8 years old reading the stories of Harriet Tubman and
Mm.
Nat Turner and Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass in my little closet, which is where I actually lived for the first several years of my life. When my mom left my father, I was very young. He was an abusive man. And she had the wherewithal to make sure that she got a little condominium, but it only had one bedroom. That was hers. My bedroom was the walk in closet in her room. And for many years, I just had a little mattress there, and I wore hand me downs, and we got things from the thrift store and flea markets. But you couldn't tell me that I wasn't the most loved,
Mm.
precious child. And my mother made sure that that little closet was filled with love. I had books, the stories of my ancestors, of examples that I could follow that also reaffirmed a very important message that she taught me very early on. And that was I didn't have to be defined by my circumstances, and I could
That's good.
become better because of what I had overcome. And so that awareness, not only that I actually had some level of control over what I did with the circumstances that I had been born into. Two, that I had examples of people that had similar stories. Of course, I was not born a slave. I would have no idea what it's like to be born a slave, but I certainly was born into circumstances that were not familiar to my friends. And so I
Hmm.
really kind of kept it a secret for many, many years. Nobody
Oh,
has
wow.
really known my true story. But what I did was I allowed those experiences, the role models, the role modeling of my mother, to order my steps in answering a call that I was supposed to be a protector, a
Hmm.
teacher, a nurturer at a very young age. So I can remember with all of those early experiences in my life that I was supposed to be a mediator. And I remember as young as 7, 8, 9 years old on the playground, protecting other little kids, standing up against bullies, very often getting my tail beat, but still standing up for what I knew was right. And then as a result of that, I remember through the years in elementary school that the kids that were even younger than me, now I'm only 7 or 8 years old, right? But I
Right.
remember as clear as day, Chelsi, the 4 and 5 year old little kids congregating around me during recess because they knew I would protect them. They
Oh.
knew that I would nurture them. They knew I was kind. And it always just felt right to me. And I'll tell you, years later, one of the beauties of Facebook, one of my biggest bullies in elementary school looked me up one day. She said, I just want you to know I have my children following you on Facebook. I'm so proud of you and so glad I know you. And I said, that's funny because you used to try to whip my tail all the time. Isn't it funny? And she replied, I did. Yes, ma'am,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
did. And so her reply, bless her heart, was, I knew I was a strong-willed child, but I didn't know I did that.
Hmm.
Strong-willed, are you? But anyhow, so but I was not mm, amazingly, I was not wounded by
Hmm.
those experiences. I
Yeah.
was not embittered because of the way she treated me. When you're walking in your divine purpose and you don't question why you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do, but hopefully the biggest challenge is how to do it, then you're not offended nor moved one way or the other by someone else's purpose and their intention. At that point, I can only assume now as a child I understood that she didn't know better.
Hmm.
And just because she didn't know better and she didn't know that you should be, as an older person, you should want to be a mentor to me 2 or 3 years younger, then you should want to protect me. But because there was something in her that was wounded, I could not hold that against her. So very interesting walking in purpose. It has kept me safe and protected and created opened doors for me that I could only ever imagine. And that has followed me through the years, and no turning back now. It's too late for me to think about doing anything other than walking in my purpose, even when it's tough. And we can talk about that too, because walking in your purpose does not mean that the road ahead is easy. If anything, it means that your life may be a little bit more complicated than someone who decides to stay on the safe side.
And I think that's so true for, at least two reasons why when you follow purpose, because one, sometimes accepting your purpose can be a
Mm,
challenge. And
sure.
then, a point that you hit on earlier is
Mm,
just the fact that it's so easy, especially now. I'm a millennial and I am just really just having some um, deep soul conversations with myself just about social media because I am
sure.
not a jealous person. I'm not easily jealous of other people. Yet
Mhm,
sometimes I can feel the pressure to
mhm,
move faster because of someone else. I don't want what they
mhm.
have. I want
Yeah.
what I want, but there's still this understanding that as even in these past week or so of
Mhm.
the new year, it has been, where is it that God wants me? Right? I
Yeah.
may have an understanding of my purpose, but purpose
Mhm,
is not only the what, it's also the when, because
mhm,
you need those lessons. And one of the things you said, Dr. Austin, that I think is just so amazing, and I would love to learn more, is you use
mhm.
the word safe. I
Mm.
haven't heard that used before when someone talks about their purpose that,
Yeah.
that brought you safety. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Mhm. Well, first of all, I'll tell you that most of the youth I work with internationally, I tell them about three key lessons in life. And if you can get these lessons under your belt, you have already won half of the battle of life. I did say half, that's it. You got to figure the rest of it out. But it starts with figuring out what your purpose is. Figuring out what your purpose is far easier than I think most people make it. I think that people feel like there should be some bright light bulb, or perhaps the clouds should part and the sun should come down, and that you should hear perhaps even this big booming voice of God that this is what you are ordained to do. And I believe that the God is within each one of us, and we know it. It is a knowing. It is not a seeking, it's not a finding, it's not a researching. It is a knowing within you. So for myself, I knew my purpose very early on was to change lives. But the second step is the how to do it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
figuring out how to do it is not the easiest thing. While I was really inspired by social activists and pioneers like Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth earlier on in my life, I wasn't sure that I wanted to be an activist, but I knew that I wanted to do what they did. I wanted to show people their purpose and lean into those dark spaces and some of the hardest moments in people's lives, and shine a bright light for them to see that their lives were not in vain, that there was something divinely created just for them, and teach them how to get it. But the third piece is figuring out how to be true to who you were born to be,
Mm-hmm.
even when times get really, really tough. Yeah.
That's good. That's
And
good.
so what that means is that it is easier to be safe. It's easier to go after the 9 to 5, or go after those careers that have been indoctrinated in us from a very early age, that this is who you should aspire to be.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody ever really encourages you, or I should say rarely do, especially the people that love us, encourage you to do what feels right, what makes you happy, what brings you fulfillment, what changes lives. We're rarely taught that. And I'm so glad I was exposed to that earlier on, and understood by pursuing that which made me happy and brought me enormous fulfillment, that safety was not always going to be an option. I have just become very comfortable sitting in that uncomfortable space of, oh, I've never done this before. So, oh, but wait a minute, I don't have that degree. So, but wait a minute, I haven't been seen on that network. And you still have, through your lived experiences, your accomplishments, as well as the people that you have had the honor of serving around the world, over 250,000 people that I've worked with in 30 countries. I'm not going to say that's better than a degree. I wouldn't dare say that. But it gives me a very unique set of experiences. It's given me an understanding of people. It's given me an understanding of socioeconomic challenges and how to solve them from a global perspective. There are skills that I've developed from pursuing my purpose that makes me just as equipped as someone with 2, 3, 4 degrees, right? But it has prepared me to do the work that I have been ordained to do, the way that it was ordained just for me to do it. And so I love how you talked about jealousy, and it's so easy to get caught up in that. But why be jealous when you have your own ordained purpose that you are supposed to focus on following? It's
That's
easier to get
good.
thrown off by, well, how many posts should I really put up every single day or every week? Child, I can't get caught up in that. I'm so sorry. Maybe I'm just not of that generation, but I cannot bother posting 3, 4 times a day and letting everybody know what I'm doing every minute of the day. And I think that that is part of your generation's struggle, is to find recognition and value through the likes and the number of tweets and how many posts, so that I can keep up with other people. And there's nothing wrong with it. Okay. Social media is powerful.
Yes.
However, I'd like to think that the people that support me and have supported me through this road called life, because We've also talked about the time that I have lost everything a few times. We can get into that more if you'd like, because that's when I found renewed purpose as to why I was here. Because God will do that to you a couple times too. You live long enough, He may take it away from you and see
Yes.
how bad you really want it and see how true you really are to the word. Um, but that hopefully we find our purpose not within how many likes we get or loves or tweets, but that if people are really following your mission, they're there through the highs, the lows, and the you don't always have to look the prettiest. You know, you can look rough, right? And you can share the times that you have been wounded and you've been disappointed and you've doubted yourself, but hopefully they stay around with you long enough to follow you to the end of that doubt and finding the solution. So yeah, I think social media, oh, it's tricky. It's tricky,
It
but
can
I
be
hope
very
that
tricky. Yeah.
yeah, that you don't determine all of your value through acknowledgement through social media, but acknowledgement through higher power. And he, she, they, I'm open to the exact form, will tell you by the opportunities that are placed at your feet, sometimes without even trying, but you've really done all of that hard work leading up to that moment that a door opens and you say, ah, thank you, Father. Thank you, Mother. But it's been there all the time. All the steps you were taking before, even the falls, were leading you up to that very point. So we have to trust more in the knowing and not in the how, why, and looking at what everybody else is doing.
It's so powerful just to be reminded of the fact that, God lives on the inside of us. And
Mhm.
for each of us, as you share, that may be different. And one of the things that I have found comfort in along my journey is knowing that God knew me before I was created in my mother's womb. And so
Mm.
therefore, if I allow myself, and why it's so for me of the Christian faith, I begin to learn more about why, as we talk about, call Jesus Lord and Savior, that surrenderance that's so important,
Mhm.
because that's why that faith is needed, because I'm trusting your word that I may see in the Bible, but I'm also trusting your word that you speak to me because you live on
Yeah.
the inside of me, and I know that you're guiding my footsteps. I know that you're with me even when I fall, even when I feel that I'm powerless, even when I feel defeated. And
Yeah.
so you talked about that renewed, your purpose, that renewal and purpose with loss. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more about, a loss, and how that renewed your purpose.
Sure. So in 2012, April 8th, 2012 to be specific, I had a heart attack.
Mhm.
And most people are surprised when they hear that because they're so young. Well, I'm a little older than you may think, first of all. But secondly, there is no limit,
That's right.
unfortunately, no age limit, no discrimination based on race, gender, or age when it comes to heart disease. And you know this with our association with the American Heart Association. But April 8th, 2012, I had a heart attack. And after a series of tests and consultations, discovered that I needed to have surgery. And I thought the heart attack was tough. Then I thought heart surgery would be tough
Mm-hmm.
and recovering from that until I then developed a pulmonary embolism from the surgery as well. And that was really tough.
Hmm.
But the toughest part for me, quite honestly, was a test of my faith.
I hope you've enjoyed today's episode as much as I have. Please join us next week for part 2 of my conversation with Dr. Yewande Austin on how I found my purpose. She'll continue sharing with us her journey after her heart attack, renewed purpose, and so much more. You don't want to miss it. See you next week.